Hey all, welcome back to the Bergerac channel. This is Jim, your humble host, and today we're going to go over how to make 4 unique corners for your table or piece of furniture that you're making. I decided to take it to the next level and show you all the patterns, the templates, how to do it. But this is 4 separate corners on 4 separate angles. We only have one 90-degree corner. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this up, get it radiused, put a coat of finish on it so you can all see it completed. In the meantime, why don't you all check it out and see how I got to this point. Just going to pull the clamps on this now, sand the moldings a little bit on both sides, and the fun's going to begin. Alright, so you've seen me prep for this whole scene, seeing all of the parts go together. That was just a give you an overview of how I cut everything. The real important stuff's coming up now. I'm going to try to explain it, and you're going to try to understand what I'm saying. There's a lot to learn here, so let's get started. This is the piece I made, and what this is, we're going to write sample tabletop. So what I've done is scaled it down smaller, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 corners. Each corner is different. You can see that this one, while it might be a 90, slightly off on the angle, not a 90. This is definitely not a 90. We have 190, and that's number 3. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to make each corner completely different in its joinery form. So let's get rid of this for just a second. You saw me cutting these up and sanding them in earlier, and you saw I had them all numbered. What you didn't see is all of these cool little pieces that I made making up our profiles. What I've done is I've kind of traced each one of these onto a piece of yellow paper, and they're all the pieces of yellow paper are numbered accordingly too. Now it's time to set up for some of the fun profiles. Let's take number 4 for an example, and let's focus on this one. Number 4 has a completely different inside corner to it. So we're going to get a completely different looking corner molding than what I've made before for you. Let's pretend this is our router bit. Now our router bit will follow all of that in through really nicely. You'll notice when it comes to this corner, the router bit's not going to eat into that corner. What I've done on all of these pieces is I've cut different dimensional material so I can come up with a different end result. So like this one's 1 1/8 inches, this is 5/8. So we're going to make a whole bunch of different joints. But when we come in with that corner, that's going to leave us a nice corner. When it runs up here, I don't particularly want a sharp corner there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch in what a 1/2 inch radius is going to look like on that one. Now we can kind of visualize, okay, that's going to look a little bit different. Now we come over to our 1 1/8 piece. Now remind you, all of these dimensions have to come out to at least what the molding is on the table. So the molding is 1 5/8 inches. So no matter what I put together here, it has to go at least that or beyond. So now we have this little radius in here. We know the bit's going to leave a radius here, so we don't care about that. We come to this corner, we're also going to get a radius in there. And then this would come off as a butt joint if I leave it that way. Decided on this one that what I would like to do is bring it in to where my other radius stops and goes to a flat, so it would be approximately right there. And then let's do a 45. Now you all come back and say, hey Jim, that's not a 45. You just put it in there. Yes, I did. The beauty of making your own corners is that no two of them have to be alike. They don't have to follow any particular order. Let's do the same thing on the other side. So whether this is a 45, whether it's a 43 or 42, it doesn't matter what degree it is. Let's do the same thing here, and let's just scribe across that one. But what I'm showing you is that it doesn't matter. The idea is to create a custom corner. So now the next stage for this is going to be to cut everything that you see where the lines are. So let me do that real quick, and I'm going to sand these radiuses off. Trim those pieces, put a radius on them, put the angle on them. This is where you're going to find out why I have a piece of paper underneath it. Let's set this close to where we want it. We know our bit's going to come in there. I definitely want to get my little radius that I put in. I want that to show up. So this piece has to be back far enough for the radius. So let's put this in, just to where the part starts to go square again. See right here where it goes square? That's where I want my radius to start. I would do the same thing for the other side, and that looks pretty good. While I have them set there, I'm going to score 2 lines across the top. These don't have to be in any particular place, you just have to have 2 indexing lines, so when you go to glue it together, you know where to glue it at. Now, I need my other 2 parts that I've cut at a 45. Now if you'll notice, this is not a 90-degree angle, so when you have 2 pieces cut at a 45, it will fit together straight. When you put it on the corner of the table, it'll blend right away. It'll look like it's naturally supposed to be that way. So I want to do the same thing with this. I'm going to just come off my radius just a little bit. I wanted to hit on a flat spot. I like the way that sits. Let's continue those lines. I'm just connecting the 2 lines that I just made. Now all the lines will line up, make it easier for gluing. Okay, we're going to come back to this side. We want to do the same thing. That's set up. Now technically we could glue that together, but we're going to take a pencil. We're going to trace this. I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff. That shows us what our corner is going to look like. Now I have some scraps of the side molding left over. I'm going to lay it on like this. If we were to make an imaginary radius there, I will address the radius issue after the part's glued on. Now, if we slide that away, that's going to be our corner. That's what our molding is going to look like when it's done. You're forgetting 2 things though. It's going to have a radius inside here. It's also going to have a radius inside here from the bit. So does that make you happy? Maybe you don't like that corner. It's okay, I got 3 more times to make you happy. Let's glue our parts together. Again, you've seen me using the 2P10 before. A bit of accelerator on the side of my part. Carefully don't glue it down to the table. I'm trying to give you the knowledge here where you can make it exactly what you want. Okay, let's go back to our piece. If I did everything right, these outside edges should match up to these outside edges of the mahogany. Okay, they line up exactly perfect. Now, I'm going to use this inside here. I'm going to scribe right on top. Now that's nothing more than for a bandsaw cut, because I want to cut most of the material off so my router doesn't have to work so hard. That's 1 corner template jig done. That's going to cut the table out. We're going to end up making the female part of that after we get this cut out. So we got 1 done, and I'm going to go over the other ones real quick. Very similar fashion, but I'm going to design slightly different corners. Number 2, I like it like that. So I want to put a little radius on this corner, a little radius on this corner. This is going to be a butt joint. I got a lot of comments about people saying, well, when you do it on a 45, the thin part wears out, pulls away. Okay, folks, I'm going to give you a butt joint for this one. It's going to be cool, you're going to like it. We're going to cut just a tiny bit of an angle, which will help it release from the mold slightly easier. Okay, so that's for number 2. Now because I'm going to do all 3 of these pieces, I'm going to take them over to the sander. I don't want to mess them up. So I'm going to put 2 and 2, 2 and 2. Okay, that one's out of the way. Let's go to number 3. Now we have our side molding. Put that on. Notice we're just slightly short of that. These don't quite make it the width. So a little narrower. What we're going to do is we're going to swap that with a 1-inch piece. It's not going to change the profile of the radius. We know we're going to get a radius inside here. With this one, let's just glue it up and take our chances. One thing I forgot, this does have to be radiused here. Put a little radius on it, so this can't be glued up yet. Okay, so 2 and 3 are done. Now we come to my favorite one, which I think is going to look really cool. These are all going to create basically an equal stagger type of joint. What I'm going to do with this, I'm going to do this slightly different. I'm going to bring all of these corners in off the point, have everything line up accordingly. Now this one, I am going to connect the lines, and I actually want these lines to match up because it is going to matter. When I glue it together, I have to be very careful. Now with this one, I need to add a radius here, 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 and here. So now everything is basically ready for me to prep, and I can glue all 3 of these parts together. So let me get that out of the way, and we'll glue them up. Okay, so you see how quickly those went together. A little bit of prep and everything went fast. Now number 3, I didn't make any lines on it. Wanted to just mock that up and show you that it works no matter how you do it. So let's set that back on our little piece of paper here, and let's see how this is going to look. Remember, we're going to get a radius in here, and we're going to get a radius here from the cutter bit. Now if you so choose, you could actually leave that like this, or you could put a radius in here. So that's number 3. Kind of like the way that looks. Well, it's going to get a radius here. Then we're going to have a butt joint, which you all wanted so bad. Number 3 is going to look like that. Let's check out how number 1 is going to look. Obviously it's a little hard to see if I'm on my lines underneath, but it'll give us the concept of what it looks like. I'm going to have a radius in here, new our line out, a little radius in here. We'll let that come to us as it does. Number 4, we've already looked at that. Last but not least, number 2. Set it in close to where it goes. We'll end up with a radius in here again. Now that's a pretty extensive, large molding, but that's number 2. So we're happy with the way everything looks on paper. We're going to pencil this out. It shows me where I need to cut with the bandsaw. Easy way to transfer, easy way to make your final decision as to whether you like your moldings or not. I don't know if I have a preference on these. They're all different. I exaggerated every molding. They go into the corners further than you may perhaps want to do. This is the way I'm doing it, so we'll go with it. We're out back, nice clean environment to do some routing, and we're going to trim number 3. Just going to keep rotating the piece, get them ready for the molds. So let's get started on that. Alright, so that's the way you burn through 4 corners. When we cut it all in the bandsaw, we left a pretty good amount of meat in there. Kind of wanted to take it slow. It doesn't hurt to make a couple extra passes to get it all smooth and in there perfect. The easy part's done now. We're going to move on to the next part. I've got the other 3 sides all taped up with 2 layers of glue tape. Tape is there to distance for our glue layer of product. Now I kind of went over that in the other video, but for those of you that didn't see the video, this is going to add a place for the glue to sit in. Obviously you need glue to stay in the joint. So 2 layers of tape is going to make a glue spacer. We're going to use West System for the glue. I just keep a little razor blade in my hand. Just go down into my joints all the way down. While I'm not really marking the wood, I'm definitely cutting the tape. What that does, it makes the tape fold over really nice. At least better than it would if you didn't do that. So now you got a nice fold over of tape. Again, if you start trying to push the tape down into the seam and maybe it doesn't go all the way in, that's going to change what your profile is when you start to do your mold work. So that's 1 layer. You can see I'm just using a pencil to try to roll it in the corner as good as I can. Okay, so what I've done here is got my little blocks that we're going to use for the actual making of the corners. The easiest way to go about doing this, we obviously need to cut this down in size. What I'm going to do is just hold my pencil about the same amount of distance off from the piece. When I get to this end, I know that that's a stopping point. So my jig's actually going to be cut back in this direction. Same thing on this end, this will be a stopping point. Okay, then we have to do that on each one, leaving yourself some gap for the filler. I know this is going to go this way. This will be cut that way. Okay, now where I made little lines on the end, over here, we can actually do that a little bit more accurately. It should be a consistent gap, like I said, but if the bandsaw blade leaves gouges in there, that's actually better to hold the fairing compound with. Beautiful. Now they're all numbered, and I'm going to know that this is the upside because everything has numbers on it. They all match the corners. So now I just cut that out. I'll get these cut, wax the tabletop, wax all of my tape up really nice, and wax the top up, and we'll basically be ready to go. So just finishing up, got 2 layers of wax on everything. Just finishing up putting the wax in the corners. On this, basically a mold release wax, right? I'm using a little brush. Seems to work the best. Sometimes a rag just piles it up in there. Somebody asked, what are we using to do this with? AP7F white. Right. Comes with its own hardener. A little batch of that, mix it up really good. We're all set. Put it right on your board. Show sure you have plenty on there. This sounds like a repeat for some of the people that have seen the video where I did just this single corner. You kind of want to make sure you don't have any air pockets in there, so you put plenty on. And obviously we want to keep side one up, set it down, work it in, and go back and push it in there everywhere where it's not, maybe perhaps not in. Make sure it's all the way down inside everywhere. Now you put your weights on top, hold it in place, and then just keep going over it until completely filled or you're comfortable. That's it. It's starting to kick off already. So you can see I got these pieces all cleaned up. They came out good. So now I got all my square little scrap blocks that came out from the other job. One thing to keep in mind though is, like when I did the other table, the teak table, it was actually a real job. I tried to keep all the moldings the same, and then I had to have enough material left over for the corner pieces. And on that job, out of the big plank of wood, we only had 2 spare corners that we were able to mill up. So a lot of times you'd actually cut this according to the angle that's on the piece in order to save wood, because then you'd reverse it and transfer and you get like more pieces. But the next deal is to mark all of these. Remember, when you're marking them on your template this way, and then they're going to sit on top of your template to be milled, you need to make sure that you keep your pencil lines up, because that's still the top of the template. So you can see that one's marked out. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit on the scroll saw. I think for this one it's going to get closer than the bandsaw, and then we can mount them, route them, and they're ready to glue on. So let me get this part done and we'll be right back. Alright, I went through and mounted these on, screw through the top. Let me show you how I'm doing that. This is the last one that I have to mount. So just kind of lining it up on the back side. You can see it's all been cut out rough on the scroll saw. Toss a spring clamp on there. You can kind of see where my marks are going to be, how big the molding is going to be. So as long as I put my screw holes on the outside of that to hold this in place, no problem, we'll be cutting it off. So because that's giving me all my locations for everything, I'm drilling right through my template rig. Then we just flip it over, put 2 screws in it. Definitely want to make sure that they're below the surface, so they're not catching on anything on the router table. Now that's ready to run on the router. So we're getting really close to being completed here. Alright, so they got the bit set up in there. You'll notice right down in here, a little spacer touches on the collar. That's to prevent, anybody's ever had it, but I've had it plenty of times where the bearing and the collar slide down, and then it ruins the whole thing. So I always like to put these little spacers in there, just to make sure that the collar and the bearing can't drop down. So let's get set up and route it out now. So I got it all glued together, kind of see how I did it. The nice part about doing this is we had overlap on the material, so I was able to screw it down, then use the clamps to draw everything in evenly. As the angles are opposing, we had to put the scraps on it. But it's all dry. See, I like to keep a little sample of the material. You know, the following day it's hard. And then we used Fastco for this. Cool, thanks. There it is, finished product. 3 coats of all craft on it. That's what it looks like. We'll talk to y'all next week. We got some cool videos coming up of stress testing joints, Festool holder, and we'll throw some other really neat stuff in there for you. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Make something cool, subscribe. We'll talk at y'all later.